Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Building It Online podcast, a podcast all about the successes, learnings, and failures from building businesses online. In today's episode, me and my buddy Mike here are going to talk about what you should do first if you're wanting to launch a product or a service into the market. And specifically, we're going to talk about, do you build the product or do you build the audience? Because we run service-based agencies where we're dealing with a lot of advertising, this is something we see all the time because we see people who come to us, they want to advertise a product that they have recently created, that they've recently come up with, and when we ask them how many sales they've got and they tell us no, that's usually a huge red flag. And so what we want to do is have a conversation around like, what should you do if you think you've got something you want to launch and you're getting ready to put it out there? What's the best way to get started? Because we have some ideas on this, having done a lot of advertising, and we wanted to share that with you guys today.
Yeah, Brice, I think this is one of the most important topics to cover. There's a lot of people out there that have ideas or want to do something and they're not exactly sure where to start. And there's a lot of conflicting information. You know, some people go the startup route, some people go the small business bootstrapped route. But I think most importantly is what we're about to discuss here, going in and finding your audience, making sure that you know exactly who it is you should be targeting and finding out whether or not there's even a market for it before you invest a ton of time and energy into developing that product or service. So let's start with a little story that I've got here from a company that I've worked with in the past. So I met with a guy about a year ago that started a company called Vavi in San Diego, which was a sports league. And the way that he went about it was one of the coolest concepts that I'd heard yet in running businesses. And it's not that uncommon, but I think the way that he did it, just getting his customer demographic and starting from absolutely no information and having this random idea to finding out within a week like who his exact target audience was and that they actually were interested in the product that he was making or the service that he was providing, I guess. It was just really transformative in my way of thinking about things and how different it was and how my mind, how appropriate it was compared to some of the people that I talk with on a daily basis. And what he had done is he wanted to play sports. He was mid-30s and he wanted to play sports. And he couldn't find enough people to put together in a team. So he decided that he was going to make flyers and start this sports league called Vavi and see if anybody would join him. So he took, I think it was something like 10,000 flyers, and for a week walked along the beach in San Diego and started passing out flyers to every single person that he came across. And he noticed immediately that anybody with children would not take the flyers. They weren't interested. They were busy. They had their own agendas. They were essentially living their children's life. And this was not a sports league for children. It was a sports league for adults. So he started walking up to everyone that didn't have children and realized shortly after that, in a couple days, that women on the beach were not interested in talking to him because he was a guy approaching a woman on the beach. But if he would approach middle-aged men that looked like they were either with a group or by themselves, then they were much more interested because it was something in common. Like the guys enjoyed, playing sports. They were active. They were out on the beach already. And he found immediately that, or within that week, that the middle-aged man was his target demographic. And by the end of the week, he was out of flyers and he had an entire group of people to play sports with the following weekend. He then took that and turned it into a formalized league, which is now called Vavi, and wound up selling it, exiting the business a few years later. That's a good in-person, not online example that correlates directly with what I've seen in my advertising business, where people come to me so frequently and say, hey, I've got this idea. I bought, $50,000, $100,000 worth of product, and I'm ready for you to advertise it. And my first question is, how much have you sold? And it's like, if you haven't sold anything, then I don't know if I can sell it. Ads are not the magic ticket, so you need to go into the background and the study and so on and so forth. And Brice, we were talking just a minute ago before the episode about an example online that I think is a really good fit for this. You want to tell that story?
anytime I tell people that come to me all the time with stuff like this, especially when people are just getting started, ads are like gasoline on fire. Like if you have something going and you can run ads, it's fantastic to put more fuel on something that's working great. But if you don't have something going, pouring gasoline all over it is very challenging. And so the nuances in advertising is having the right marketing, having the right messaging, knowing exactly who you're speaking to, and all of these things. And me and Mike both know, because we've spoken with a lot of people, the guys who spend 6 months building a course that they want to see in the world, and once they get it done, they just can't sell any, because the market didn't want their course. They wanted their course. And so where we see people have a lot more success is when people go out and build the audience first. And they generate a group of people who are interested in what they have to sell, even though they're not super specific about what it is that's actually being sold. I've got an example, a guy that I was talking to, he's starting a CBD company. And he is spending the first couple of months of his business by creating content and building an email list of people who are interested in buying CBD. He hasn't purchased any product. He hasn't done anything other than build a really simple lead gen website that he can publish content and then generate leads to build a list of interested people. And that's the way to do it, because then you can start to generate demand and you can start to figure out who your customers are going to be. What is the language that they're speaking? What are the things that they're really interested in? You will learn a lot from selling your first 10 products by just getting out there and hitting the pavement and talking to people than you will by trying to turn on Facebook ads and see if you can get them to convert to cold traffic with a product that you never sold before. And maybe if you have experience, like you might, there's so many ways that we spend hours doing customer research at my agency so that we can really figure out the right language and how to set up ads and stuff. But the best data we always get is directly from our customers who are telling us, hey, these are who my customers are. These are what they're interested in. This is the language they use. When we do follow-up surveys, this is what they tell us that they loved about the product. And we take all of that and put that into advertising campaigns. And so, if you're just trying to get started, building that audience and then getting out there and getting those first 10, 20, 30 sales is absolutely the way to go.
Yeah, I've heard of companies before. I've not set it up myself, but I've heard of companies before that built a really simple website if they had the capabilities to do so, and then put tracking links on each of the buy now buttons. And then when the person clicked on the buy now button, it went to a 404 page, so it didn't actually work. And then there was some sort of an email form, or it would redirect, I guess, to an email form, and it said, hey, this product isn't actually available yet, but if you'd like to be the first to know about it, submit your email here. And what they would do is they would track the number of people that clicked on the button and then the number of emails that they got in that form to gauge interest. And it was a really unique way for me to see in an online example how to really figure out if there is a demand for your product. Because I've seen products personally that I thought would do really, really well online just completely flop and nothing happened to them. And the inverse, where people have come to me with products that I was like, there's no way this is going to sell. And they took off. And immediately, they were just skyrocketed. And for me, it just goes to show how the psychological differences and how your frame of the world is just one frame. And in order to sell anything online, and honestly, before you start paid traffic, you should know that there's a much larger demand than just you and your small friend group for that product. So.
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime you start to sell any kind of product online, you are now no longer in the same category as your customer. You are now operating on a different level where you are trying to be a product creator, an entrepreneur, whatever that is, someone that's selling something of value. And oftentimes the people who are buying that sort of thing, are not the people who create that sort of thing. So you're not going to be in the same mindset. So getting real market feedback is so valuable, and doing, you can get your first 10, 20, 30, 50 sales from so many different channels where you're doing outreach, content, building an audience, building a list in a way that's much more organic, and then take that and amplify that with paid traffic. Oftentimes much easier than you can with just going straight towards paid ads. And, I know guys who have launched stuff on paid ads before, and it definitely can work, but oftentimes these guys are experts that have launched, dozens of products. And so they know what they're doing and they know how to do this kind of research before they get into the ad campaign. But if you're just getting started trying to build something online, get those first 10, 20 customers and then probe them for feedback. Reach out to them. Hey, what did you like about this? What didn't you like about this? What did what would you like to see improve better? What problem did this solve for you? What was the biggest thing you expected this to do for you? And what did it actually do for you? Get all of that data and then turn what they're telling you back into your marketing message that you use to go out on advertising platforms and reach more people.
Yeah, I think it's critical. And I think that the last episode we talked about, entrepreneurship as a path to personal development. And one of the things in there was staying humble, making sure that you are able to take feedback for what it is. And at the end of the day, if you're starting a business, what you want is for people in mass to want and to desire what the product is or the services that you're selling. So finding that out on day 1, day 2, day 3 is much better than finding that out after you've invested, $100,000 in a year of your time. So doing this process and staying humble and taking the feedback for what it's worth is really important. And I don't think that there's a black and white answer to the feedback that you're going to get, but it might shift you in a different direction. You're only one mind. So if you can get 100 people to give you feedback on the idea or the product that you have, and it shifts a little bit to something that you might not have thought of, but is actually a better product or a better service, then I think that's a really good thing to find out sooner rather than later.
Definitely. And something that I know from experience is, people vote with dollars. And if you go out there and start asking people for feedback about, and, hey, can you tell me your idea? What you think about this? What you think about this? A lot of people will give you feedback. But what I've seen people do is they go ask a bunch of people, hey, if I hypothetically created this service, would you be interested in this? And they're all like, yes, until you create the service and no one pays for it because they liked it enough to give you feedback, but they didn't want to pay you for it. So using kind of that hustle to go out there and get your first, group of customers to use your product, once people actually pay you for it, then what the value of it is. And then you have that paying customers feedback. And, especially, any product you want to sell at scale, what you need to do is have market feedback from, the people who are actually using it.
I heard that once for someone running a focus group, is at the end of the focus group, they asked a lot of people, it's 20 people sitting in a room, they asked them their feedback on it, and they asked them all these different questions around what they would change, what they liked, what they didn't like. And at the very end, they said, is this something that you would buy for $30, $45, $100, whatever the price was? And most of the people said yes. And the reason is because there's a psychological barrier to disappointing people. You don't want to look someone in the eye and say, I don't like what you've built. And especially after sitting with them for 30 minutes and giving them feedback on it. And it was interesting because he said that he always ended his focus groups with that question. And then right after would ask, okay, here's the Square transaction reader, right? Like pull out your credit card, give me your money for this product. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, I'm not so sure I want this anymore. And that was how he actually gauged whether or not he had a product that was worth advertising or worth pursuing. So it's interesting.
No, definitely. There was a podcast that I was listening to the other day that was talking about a guy who launched a flip-flop company through focus groups and just getting people in a room. I think in today's day and age with people being online, so much of us, we want to me being a paid ads guy, and I talk with people all the time who are trying to launch stuff through paid ads. There's just so much value in getting that first initial round of feedback from either people in real life or people that you can generate kind of through some organic hustle before you go to spend, $5,000 on paid ads. Especially if you're dealing with a low ticket product, like that could be, anytime you're running ads, you're just buying data at the beginning, but that could be a really expensive set of data to buy.
That's so true, Brice. I have a conversation numerous times a week with my clients telling them that the Facebook advertising and Google advertising that we're doing is not solely to generate money. Obviously, it has to do that. But the highest benefit that they'll get from our services is the information and the data that they get to pull back and then implement across their entire brand. So for a company that's doing email marketing and direct mail and maybe some pop-ups or some farmers markets, something like that, it really gives them information to approach all of those different markets with their target demographic, knowing concretely the people that are going to buy. So that's extremely valuable in that sense. I think that's all we've got for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode here. Give us a like on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, whatever platform it is that you use. We would love the feedback. If you guys want to leave us a review, anything that you have questions on or anything you'd like to see in the future, we read those every day. We're more than willing to do an episode on them. And lastly, if you have anything that you would like to reach out to us for, we created a Gmail for this. It's buildingitonlinepodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to drop Brice or myself a line there, and we'll be in touch next week.